He stood at the edge of the diner's patio, holding the hand of a little girl with tangled hair and tired eyes. His voice was barely a whisper, trembling from cold and shame. "Ma'am, may I have your leftovers?" No one saw what came next. No one expected what came next, but the million, that changed everything. The rain had been falling for hours. The neon signs of Tammy's 24, our diner, flickered against puddles on the sidewalk as people bustled past, hunched into their coats, ignoring the man with worn-out sneakers and the child clinging to his leg. His name was Evan Carter, 34 years old. Once a proud construction foreman with a house, a wife, and plans. But life had a way of folding on itself. When his wife, Claire, passed away from cancer just 8 months after diagnosis, everything collapsed. The bills were relentless, his grief unmanageable, and his little girl, Lily, only 4 years old, was too young to understand why her mom never came home again. They'd been living out of his old Chevy Blazer for 2 months now, hopping from gas stations to shelters, sometimes lucky enough to get a hot shower, often not. He'd pawned nearly everything he had of value just to keep Lily fed. Tonight the heater had finally given out, the car wouldn't start, and with only $3.84 to his name, he made a choice, not for himself, for Lily. Inside Tammy's diner, Angela Morno, 51, sat alone at a booth near the window. A successful entrepreneur, she was returning from a late meeting, exhausted and looking for a quiet meal. Her plate of chicken, fried steak and mashed potatoes sat barely touched. Across from her, an untouched slice of apple pie steamed beside a chipped coffee mug. She looked up when she heard the voice. "Ma'am, may I have your leftovers?" Angela turned slowly and saw him, Evan, with his arms around the little girl, trying to keep her dry under his jacket. She blinked. Most people would have pretended not to hear, but something in the way he said ma'am stopped her. Something in the way he didn't look at her plate, but at Lily. "Are you hungry?" she asked gently. He hesitated, pride like a lump in his throat. Then nodded once, for her, not me. Angela stood up, quietly walked to the counter, and said something to the waitress. Within minutes, the staff was bringing out 2 hot meals, grilled cheese, soup, even fresh fries, and a chocolate milkshake. They sat Evan and Lily in a corner booth with real silverware and napkins. The little girl's eyes widened as the food arrived. "Daddy, we get to sit." Evan nodded, mouth quivering. "Yeah, baby, we get to sit." Angela watched from a distance, heart clenching. She'd been poor once too. She knew the kind of hunger that made you dizzy, the kind of worry that stole your sleep. She had clawed her way out of it, but she'd never forgotten. Later that night, when Evan thanked her quietly at the door, Lily asleep in his arms, Angela asked, "Do you have somewhere safe to stay?" His eyes dropped. "We make do." Angela made a decision in that moment she didn't fully understand yet. Over the next few days, Angela couldn't stop thinking about the man and his daughter. She asked the diner staff if they'd seen him again. No one had. But then, 5 days later, as she was walking to her car, she saw them again, huddled behind the auto shop, trying to fix the broken ignition with a borrowed screwdriver. "Evan," she said softly, approaching them. He straightened, surprised. "I've been looking for you," she said. Angela offered him a place to stay temporarily, in her guest house, just until you get on your feet. She insisted. He refused at first. "I can't take advantage of you. You've done too much already." But when Lily started coughing that night, Angela didn't ask again. She simply opened her door. In the days that followed, Evan learned what it meant to rest again. He took care of Lily during the day while Angela helped him rewrite his resume. She made a few calls to friends she knew in the construction business. Within a week, Evan had an interview. Within 2, he had a job. But that was only the beginning. Angela had a vision, born out of something she saw in Evan. The same fire she once had when she was starting over after a devastating divorce. She offered him something else, to launch a non-profit with her, one aimed at helping single parents escape homelessness. "Call it what you want," she said, "but I believe in giving people a hand up, not a handout." They called it Lily's Light. In under 6 months, Lily's light had helped 20 families find temporary housing, jobs, and legal aid. Evan became the face of the program. His story resonated with donors and volunteers alike. He shared his journey publicly, about the moment he asked for someone's leftovers and found a future instead. One night, at the nonprofit's first big fundraising gala, Angela handed Evan an envelope. Inside was a check. $1,000,000, a grant from an anonymous donor who had heard his story on a local podcast. Evan stared at it, stunned. "What is this?" he asked. Angela smiled, a little tear in her eye. That's what happens when people believe in you. Use it wisely." Evan Carter had never imagined that life could turn so sharply, so cruelly, so fast. Just 2 years prior, he was a man with a steady job, a small but cozy home, and a wife he adored more than life itself. Claire had been the heart of their little family, always laughing, always seeing the bright side. Even when things started to go wrong, the diagnosis came out of nowhere. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. It was already too late by the time they found it. Evan remembered the way she held his hand in the hospital bed and whispered, "Take care of our girl," just days before she slipped away. That moment was like a fracture in his soul, a quiet breaking that no one heard but him. After Claire died, grief came in waves, some days like a whisper, others like a tidal surge, and while Evan mourned, the bills mounted. He tried to hold everything together, tried to work full-time while taking care of Lily, still just a toddler, still asking for her mommy at bedtime. He'd wake up at 3 a.m. to find her sitting in the living room, clutching her mother's scarf, whispering into the air like she believed Claire could hear her. "I miss you, Mama." Every time Evan heard those words, something inside him cracked a little more. Eventually, he lost the house. It started with missed mortgage payments, then the car payments, and before long, he was out of work. No one wants to hire a man who's grieving, distracted, and can't commit to overtime because he has a child who cries herself to sleep every night. They lived in motels for a while, then out of his beat-up Chevy Blazer. Evan did everything he could to protect Lily from the worst of it. He made up stories, called it an adventure, and tried to make her laugh. But a child can tell when something's wrong. She started drawing pictures of houses with sad stick figures outside them. She asked if Santa Claus would be able to find them if they didn't have a chimney. The night he asked Angela for her leftovers wasn't just about hunger. It was about dignity. It was about a father who had nothing left to offer, but couldn't let his daughter go to sleep with an empty stomach again. Evan didn't want pity. He didn't want charity. He just wanted a little bit of food that might otherwise be thrown away. When Angela looked him in the eye that night, it wasn't with judgment. It wasn't with disgust. It was with recognition. She saw something in him, something she remembered in herself from long ago, that spark of fight buried under exhaustion. The meal Angela bought that night was more than food. It was the first true act of kindness Evan had received in months, and it was followed by more. Shelter, conversation, opportunity. Evan had been on the edge, ready to give up. He'd thought maybe he wasn't meant to make it through this, that maybe Claire's death had marked the end of all good things. But Angela reminded him, in quiet, steady ways, that the story wasn't over. That redemption was still possible, that love could return in unexpected forms, not as romance, but as human connection, as a second chance. The turning point wasn't just getting a roof over their heads or a job interview. It was someone believing in him again. For the first time in years, Evan looked in the mirror and saw more than a broken man. He saw a father fighting for his daughter, a survivor, a builder, and with Angela's help, he rebuilt not just his life, but the lives of others. He learned that no act of kindness is ever wasted, that what we give in a moment of compassion can ripple outward for years. He learned that sometimes, asking for someone's leftovers can open the door to a life you never dreamed you'd live. And above all, he learned that hope is a seed you plant even in the darkest soil, because with time and care and just a little bit of light, it grows. It's been 5 years, Lily now 9, is beaming as she cuts the ribbon in front of a brand new Lily's Light Transitional Shelter. Angela stands beside Evan, who now wears a pressed suit and walks with the quiet confidence of a man who has known both collapse and redemption. In his speech, Evan says, "I asked for someone's leftovers once. I thought that was all I deserved, but instead I was offered a seat at the table, and now we're building tables for others to sit at. That's the power of hope. That's the power of just one person choosing to see someone, not for who they are in their lowest moment, but for who they could become. Sometimes it just takes a meal, a kind word, a moment of empathy. If you've ever felt like you had nothing left to give, remember this. Your smallest act of kindness could be someone else's turning point. So next time someone asks for your leftovers, maybe, just maybe, give them a chance at something more. End with soft piano music, clips of real life nonprofits helping families, and a call to action to support local shelters or volunteer time.